In other news, Desantis says he would sign legislation to defund the corrupt IRS. Quote, they're going to go after independent contractors. They're going to go after small business people. They're going to go after someone that may be driving Uber or a handyman or all these things. Well, here's the thing. They've been doing that for decades. Where you been, DeSantis? Hey, welcome back to our Retire Early Lifestyle, where we dissect everything that affects our retire early lifestyle, whether at home or abroad. I've got some whoppers for you. Stick around. Before we get to the whoppers, though, I've been showing you in my videos lately what the weather's been doing. It's significant if you understand. Historically, this isn't normal. Historically, we get 25 days out of the month, every month of the year, with sunshine, and then maybe 5 days with cloud cover. And that's why it's a desert, normally. Now, ever since last fall, going on over 6 months, it's been cloud cover 25 days out of the month, and maybe 5 days, maybe only 3 days of sunshine. Very unusual weather. And of course, it's been so windy lately that I can't make my beach videos, that I have to be indoors and make some videos. So I hope you'll enjoy the whoppers. Let's get on with it. Now, the first thing is that, lo and behold, a vlogger finally came out and said all of the reasons why they're leaving Ecuador, which is something I've talked about. Some of you have been around my channel a while. You know that I talk about how people normally don't make videos about why they leave a place. They always make videos about why you should go to a place. And since we've traveled abroad for 12 years and have a lot of stories that we've told and stories to tell, one of them always was that nobody makes these videos. And interestingly enough, it was all of the reasons were like reasons we've been giving our viewers for years. And so none of it was any surprise to us. But there were some things in it you could tell this fellow was the type of person that speaks his mind and understands that he's on his way out of the country anyway. So regardless of how much flack he gets from vested interests, he's on his way out anyway. And one of the brilliant things he said was that he was also quitting his YouTube channel. Something we've talked about on this channel, because in his words, in order to be successful about a location like Ecuador or any other location, he would have to mimic the successful channels, the ones that are getting all the views, and compromise his principles and say things as they really aren't in order to get the subscribership and the views. Isn't that an amazing time we live in, where things are backwards? It's like, if you really want to know what's going on, you don't really want to be following the popular channels, because as we're telling it to you right now, those are the ones that aren't telling you stuff. The ones to be following are the ones that are telling it like it is, that are a minority channel and are teetering on the verge of extinction. Moving on to the next whopper. So I've been doing a lot of neutral to back home USA type of whoppers. I'm going to mix it up a little bit for you as best as I can. South Dakota governor tells Board of Education, and it's always about these institutions. When you look at these kinds of stories, it always comes down to institutions that have been compromised from the top. It's not a complicated strategy to go to the top in order to commandeer the whole institution. And so I'm saying South Dakota governor tells higher education board to remove mandates, whatever the mandates are. I'm not particular to any particular mandate. A mandate is a mandate, and that's a whole other video and conversation about how communist and wrong mandates are to begin with. Anything that comes under the umbrella of mandate should be immediately nullified. But in this case, it's mandates on preferred pronouns. Now, the question becomes, and I'm not trying to say that this shouldn't be something that people should engage in. At any point where there is something evil being pushed, definitely good people should be pushing back. But I'm just asking and I'm questioning, and you tell me what your reaction is in the comments. Is it easier to tell bad people to not do bad things and get them to do it if they're bent on doing bad things? Or is it easier to simply not participate and not facilitate and not support those bad things that these bad people want to do? It's sort of like a detach with love, or it's sort of like you've got the top of the good guys saying to the top of the bad guys, no, you can't do this. Problems occur when, I call it topple the leader, or maybe something happens to the leader. Maybe they didn't get toppled, maybe they simply had to move on, maybe their term expires. Maybe they became ill and, or maybe they passed on, for one reason or another. Maybe they're just no longer available, and now you've got to replace this void. Whereas the other way, the responsibility falls on both the leadership and the people. The people are the ones that can say, we're not going to take it anymore. And it's up to the people to be supportive if they have good leadership like Kristi Noem in South Dakota. And by choosing not to participate with the plans of the bad people, they would be doing much more good than simply relying on the leadership of the good side to take on the whole battle. There was a case in the Netherlands when we were in Poland. We were talking about how they responded in the Netherlands when they made these mandates where people had to wear masks on the public transportation system. The people simply all organized together. That's right, they worked together to agree to not use the public transportation system. They all started riding bicycles, and the mandate just kind of fizzled. It was a non-event. And so that's the real conversation here. When we see things like this going on, we have to ask ourselves, what are we, the people, doing about this? For example, there are certain things that only leaders can really do, like when you've got the president of El Salvador that is rounding up all of these gangs, just serial killers that, were just murdering people left and right, and they deserve the electric chair. But I keep seeing stories that demonize the president of El Salvador. Now, I'm no fan, as a lot of you know, of the suspension of human rights and law and order. Generally speaking, it's a very bad idea. But sometimes the only way to get rid of cancer, like when I was a teenager, I did some silly things when I was young. Isn't that something? When you're real young, you do silly things. Well, I would walk barefoot. I used to walk barefoot on the street to the beach in southern Italy. And, well, I got warts. And I tried everything I could. I put this medicine, that medicine, and they never went away. And finally went to the doctor, and he cut them out. So sometimes you just have to cut out the cancer cells, and you have to cut out the evil. But even then, it's just it's a short thing. It's like a laser surgery, and it's done. And you don't suspend human rights for long periods of time. Especially ever since 2020, you've been seeing this kind of thing where, like in Ecuador, for example, the law in Ecuador says they can only call an emergency and do things that are unconstitutional for like a 3-month period, but they kept renewing it, and they're only supposed to do it 2 3-month terms in a year. So, but if people aren't paying attention, then evil flourishes. And it's not an idea that is incomprehensible that when you suspend human rights, some innocent people would get caught in the middle of this, and there's multiple reports of innocent people being captured under this Bukele, the president of El Salvador, under this regime where they're trying to put away all these gangs, which is, by the way, the complete opposite of what they're doing in Ecuador, where the gangs are pretty much running freely now, and the crime rates have just skyrocketed out of control in Ecuador. This guy here in El Salvador has put his foot down and is rounding them up. Let's hope and pray there aren't any innocent people that are getting caught up in that. Moving on to the next whopper. Now, I have friends that are considering going to Uruguay. I won't go that far. You know, ever since 2020, our goal is to live somewhere where we don't depend on institutional public transport to get either in or out of a country, because as we've seen, we have absolutely no control over them, and we could easily get grounded and lose complete control over our movements. I'll go into that in a different video. But it turns out that Uruguay has been suffering a lack of rain for quite a long time and is now causing a shortage of drinking water, which is alarming. Apparently, the reserves of drinking water will only last another few weeks, and that when it got to the level where it was only going to last a couple more weeks, they started mixing salt water in their drinking water. I'm just shaking my head, and I'm thinking, yeah, that's the kind of thing that we see happening in a lot of these Latin countries, and we see it happening here in Mexico. There's the faucet water is salty here on the coast. Anyway, this is causing health issues because, of course, you can't drink salt water. Even the U.S. Embassy for Uruguay is warning people about this condition, and it is alerting U.S. citizens to maintain awareness of water supplies in your area. Now, I was talking about this in a different video where the weather here has been so different that it's literally just green everywhere. It's supposed to be a desert, and usually this place doesn't get very much water, but we went through a period where for like 3 months straight it was raining every single week. And had the people just had water collections and cisterns and this and that, there would have been enough water for people for a year or even 2 years if you've got enough water collection going on. And so this reminds me of the story of Joseph in the Bible, where he had a dream and foresaw a famine coming and had everybody put extra stores up in silos for when they didn't have. And this is a simple concept that's easy to understand. And I talk frequently in my videos about how perilous in these times it is to go forward thinking and believing that we can be perennial travelers, which requires us to trust that all of the things at our fingertips, our disposal, and everything we use in order to live that lifestyle will always function the way it always has. And case in point, no drinking water in Uruguay. Moving on to the next whopper. In other news, Desantis says he would sign legislation to defund the corrupt i.r.s. Quote, they're going to go after independent contractors. They're going to go after small business people. They're going to go after someone that may be driving an Uber or a handyman or all these things. Well, here's the thing. They've been doing that for decades. Where you been, Desantis? There's a lot to be said on this subject. The thing is that this situation has been going on for over 100 years, and it's a day late and a dollar short. But hey, better late than never. And the thing is, how many prosecutions has the governor tacitly approved of by not stopping them in their tracks? It's like once the system, the gears of the system is in motion, there seems to be an inertia when it comes to just turning the switch off and not prosecuting. Again, It's the same conversation I had earlier in the video. You can sit here and do the head and top of the good guys battling this head of this other part of the good guys or the bad guys or whatever you want to call it. It's just heads trying to convince each other of what should be done. Well, you can sit around talking and negotiating, or you can simply refuse to enforce evil once and for all. And that means things like not allowing attorney generals to proceed with prosecutions involving the IRS unless there is other criminality present, which is what the selling point, it seems to me, was way back in the day. This is how they put that big time bootlegger in jail. They could never catch him, and they could never accuse him of wrongdoing, of breaking the law with the bootlegging, but they were able to go after him for taxes, and in this way they were able to put him in prison. Now, this guy wasn't just a bootlegger. He was an outright criminal gang enterprise where they killed people and this kind of thing. So because the alcohol laws, prohibition laws, were repealed anyway. So that's another conversation. But the point is that on a lot of these prosecutions where people are going to prison over what they say, or over paperwork or taxes, or where people have a belief where they don't want to fund a Marxist system and they end up in prison. Where were these governors and these attorney generals when they could have gotten in the way and chose not to participate in these prosecutions? This is what I'm saying, and why I say it's better late than never, but there's so much damage that could be avoided by simply refusing to participate and going along with evil. All right, well, let me know in the comments what you think about that. Thanks for coming to the video, and have a wonderful day.